Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to create a Power BI dashboard from start to finish using 5 simple steps. This dashboard includes a summary page as well as a details page to provide deeper insights into the data. To follow along with this tutorial, you can download the completed dashboard as well as the datasets used in this tutorial, and the links will be provided in the description below. At the end of this tutorial, you'll also be provided with 3 pro tips to help you improve your dashboard design, so be sure to follow along until the end. Let's get started. Okay guys, so I've just opened up a blank Power BI file, and before I do anything with this report, I want to click the save button and give my report a name. We're going to call this Adventure Works Sales Report. I'll call it 2023. Okay, so that step, as simple as it is very important, because the last thing you want to do is make a bunch of progress on your report and realize that the file was not saved, and for some reason it crashes and you lose all of your progress. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is get our data. So today we're going to be pulling data from a sample data set that Microsoft has produced called AdventureWorks Cycle. I'm going to just bring the location of that file in here so that you can see where I got it from. So it's taken from Kaggle, and here you would see the CSV files that I've downloaded onto my laptop, and I'm going to import these files now into our report. Okay, now that we have our file downloaded, we'll click on the drop down. We're going to select text/CSV type. This will take us to location, and we're only going to be using product, region, and sales table for this tutorial. Select the product table and bring it in. We're going to see now a preview of the data. We have the option of either loading or transforming the data. We're going to select transform data, and here we're going to see table loaded. Power BI has already gone ahead and applied some steps for us. As you can see, there was no column names identified. Power BI has gone ahead and promoted the headers, identifying the column titles, and also the data values have been identified as well. So Power BI has changed the type for us, because we can see just clicking on the data type, it was stored before in an incorrect way, and Power BI has now changed it to the correct type. We now want to add a column, and we'll make this one a conditional column. And this column we want to call cost range. We are creating this column because we want to determine if the standard cost is greater than or equal to 300. We want to call this high cost. And if the standard cost is less than 300, then we want to return the value of low cost. We're going to click OK. And there we see our column is created. We just need to change the data type. And we're going to select text. We can now bring in our region and sales table. We're clicking OK because everything's fine with this table. We don't have any transformations to be done. We're now going to bring in the sales table. I'm going to click OK. Okay, so for the sales table, everything seems to be stored correctly thanks to the applied steps that Power BI completed. but we want to make an additional transformation to the order date. We want to add two new columns. One would be for month, so we want to select the end of month because we want our data to be sliced by end of month as well. And we also want to click on the order date table again and add another column from there, and we're going to select quarter. Quarter of the year selected, we can include another column, and this would be for year. These dates are important because you want to be able to slice the data by different time dimensions. So we can now close and apply. And we've just completed this step, which is to get and transform the data. Okay, so now we have our three tables loaded, which is the product, region, and sales. We're now going to move on to creating our data model. The page we're looking at is the report view, but there's also a data view in Power BI, and there is also the model view, which we'll be working in. Here we have the three tables represented, and we're now going to connect these tables. We see that the product key located in the product table can be linked to the sales table through the product key as well. So we're going to go ahead and create that relationship. Okay, and we see that there's also a link with the sales and the region table where the sales territory key in the region table can be linked to the sales territory key in the sales table. Okay, so this is our data model design. It's a really simple data model. Of course, there's a lot more to be understood about data modeling, the data modeling in Power BI. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail in this tutorial, but for now, we're just going to be using these two dimension tables, which are the product table and the region table. And we have one fact table, which is the sales table. And this makes up what we would call the star schema design. We can now move on to the next step. Okay, so now we're now going to create 6 measures in our sales tables. And the first measure is going to be total sales. We're going to be using the SUMX function for this. And this basically says that we want to multiply the total quantity by the total unit price in the sales table. The next measure that we'll be creating is the total cost. We're going to be using the SUMX function for this as well. And the total cost is the quantity in the sales table multiplied by the standard cost in the related table, which is the product table. We're also going to create a measure for total orders, which is the distinct count of the sales order number in the sales table. And for the total quantity, this would be a simple sum expression, which is the sum of quantity in the sales table. And the second to last measure would be the profit and loss, which is the total sales minus the total cost. For the profit margin, we're going to look at the difference between the total sales and the total cost over the total sales, and that will tell us what percentage of profit or loss was determined. So by creating these simple measures, we can now analyze the data better and visualize the key metrics that we should be focusing on in this simple report. Okay, so we're now ready to move on to the fourth step, which is to visualize the data. To do that, we're gonna create a simple title for our report, Adventure Brick Cycle Sales Report, and we're going to increase the font size of this so it's very clear. And the next thing we want to do is include a slicer. This slicer is going to be used to look at the data through different time dimensions. We're also going to be using cards to help us to see what are the most important figures first in the report. So we're going to use 5 cards for 5 of the measures that we created previously in our previous step. We're also going to be including a bar chart so that we can see our sales by category. We're also going to include a line chart to allow us to see the sales through different time dimensions, as well as by category. And last, we're also going to include a map so that we can see which region produces the most sales by category as well. So here we have a simple layout of what our report is going to look like. We're now just going to go in and fill in each of these chart elements. So here we have the most important figures at the top, which is total sales, total profit and loss, profit margin, total orders, and total quantity. We've just filled up our bar chart as well, which gives us total sales by category. And we're now going to fill our line chart visual, looking at total sales. And we also want to add a category in there. And we want to look at it through different time dimensions. So we're going to include order dates, quarter, we're going to also include end of month as well as year. So we can see that we can click on the drill up button to see our sales across the different years. And now we're going to fill our map chart by including sales by country and category. Okay, so now that we have our visuals represented on the page, we want to go ahead and look for ways to improve the design of the report. And here in Microsoft, there are themes. So you go to the View tab and you select one of the themes that's available. And you can also go and customize this theme. You can do this by going through the various buttons and looking at what the default setting is for this theme and just improving it by either softening the text color from a harsh black to a darker green. You can also change the font style as well and make it smaller so that it doesn't look too bulky on the report. And there are other options here that you can go through to play with and see what's best for a better way to visualize the data in your report and to give your user a better experience. So here I'm just going to go in and change the text colors from a harsh black to a softer gray color and also change the font style and apply the changes. And here you see it's much softer and the visuals look a lot easier to look at. It's a lot easier to look at, and we can now look at further enhancements like including a background instead of just leaving it white. And here we can see that the actual visuals that's on the report page has backgrounds that are white as well. So some of them we may not want the background to remain white, so we're just going to remove the white background from the slice and the title. And we want to go to our formatting pane, and for the cards that we created, we're going to select all of those cards and we're going to do some further formatting. And this is to go to the visual border section and make the corners more rounded so it's not sharp edges. And this just gives a softer look to an appearance to the report. So here we're seeing that we can also determine an exact height and an exact width for the cards, and we're doing that as well. So we're just going to go about making these changes to our report design so that it improves the user experience. We're going to do the same for our bar chart and our line chart, as well as make some very minor changes to the map chart also. Here in the bar chart, we can remove the titles from the X and the Y axis, and we can also create different colors for each category as well. So here I'm just going through some changes to this bar chart so that we can be able to determine the categories and how they are represented on each visual. We want to make sure that the same colors that we're using for the categories are displaying across the report with the same colors. So we're going to use the pinned button to apply the formatting style to the rest of the visuals. And then we want to go and align these visuals. And here we can test out our line chart, and we're seeing that we can drill up and drill down to see the data by year and by quarter, and we can even do further formatting with it, making sure it has enough space. We want to give a little more space to this line chart, so we're just going to extend it a bit. Okay. Just to make sure that everything looks even, we're going to do the same width for our bar chart at the top. We want to include markers for our line chart, and we're going to make the stroke width a little smaller so that it's not too bulky. We're also going to give some color to the title of the report. This could be based on the brand colors for your business or your company. You can use color schemes that are aligned to what is the brand colors for the particular company that you're preparing the report for. So here I'm just going to use this color scheme just to make the report title stand out a bit. And just to make sure everything's aligned, we see that the report now looks a lot cleaner. We're going to make sure that the visual border is applied to all of the visuals on this page to make sure everything looks consistent. And again, we're using the pink button to make it easier to apply these formatting changes. Okay, so we can now give this page a name. We'll call this the summary page. And we're going to create another page by duplicating the summary page, and this page will be used for the details of the report. We're going to remove the visuals that we don't want duplicated, and we're going to leave the big figures at the top that are important so that whatever we do on this details page, we will still keep the same view in the user's site so that they can be able to make correlations with the same view that they had in the summary page. And here we're going to create some slices, and we're going to use country as a first slicer, and we want to use the option of a drop down slicer. So we just selected that in the settings, and we're going to copy and paste this slicer 5 times. So we're going to create 5 slices, and we can select all of them, go to the format button and align by aligning at the top and distributing horizontally. And we're going to create a chart. Well, this is going to be a table, but it's a matrix table where we can view the details of the data by country, category, and subcategory. We want to see sales, we want to see total profit or loss, and we also want to see the profit margin. And here in the matrix table, the cool thing about this is that you can drill down and you can see the next level of details, and you can even go further down to the third level of details, which is subcategory. This is very effective for digging into the insights, and for a user that needs to see the details, a matrix chart really does it well. We're also going to create a clustered bar chart. And we're just going to adjust each of these. We're going to include country. We're going to include also the category and the subcategory. And we want to see what the profit margin looks like for these different segments. And here we can see the breakdown of profit margin by country, category, and subcategory. But we want to adjust this chart because it has a little too much details in it. We want to remove the titles from the X and Y axis to make the chart look cleaner. We want to remove the Y axis because we have data labels. We see that it's 2 decimal points, so that we want to bring it down to 1 decimal point so that the data label does not take up too much space. And here we want to, we can choose to leave the Y axis on, or we can remove the data label. So it's an option that you can use to play around with based on the level of details your user wants to see. And for here, we want to click on columns, and we want to conditionally format our column according to the profit margin. So if the profit margin is in a minus, we're going to use minus 0.01 as what the minus would be. And if it's beyond 0, we want it to be blue. If it's In a minus, we want it to be red, and here we've just applied conditional formatting. And we can now remove the legend because we don't need it. And this simple change really helps the user to see which categories, subcategories, and even country we've experienced a loss in profit margin, and which ones we've actually experienced a positive profit margin number. You can drill up and you can drill down, and you can see it across a different context, whether it be country, subcategory, or category. So this visual would be very useful for our user who wants to dig into the details and see exactly where our loss is coming from and which product is responsible for it. We are going to continue with improving the visuals, but before we do that, we did create slices previously, but we did not include all of the categories that we wanted. So we're going to just remove the duplication of country for each. And we are going to put other slicer options that will allow the user to slice by category, by subcategory, and we are also going to include the cost range field that we created during the transformation step. And the last one would be to allow the user to view the data by product. Okay, so now that we have included our slices, we can just make some minor adjustments that's going to make the report look more uniform, which is to ensure that the visual border design is consistent throughout all of the charts. Give a quick review to make sure all visuals are aligned. Everything seems to be good. And we're going to just do a quick look at our summary page to make sure all is in order as well. Everything seems to be good. So there are 3 pro tips that I'm going to share in this tutorial to end our session off. And the first one is going to be the use of conditional formatting. So here we see that when we select bikes as a category, we are seeing that there is actually a loss for this category and the profit margin is in a minus. It would be nice for our user to see or visualize this card using a different color so that it will highlight to them what is positive and what is negative. So we're going to attempt to solve this problem by applying conditional formatting to this card. And we do this by clicking on the format your visuals, and we're going to go down to the callout value. We're going to see the default color is gray, but we want to set a gradient for this particular chart, and the formatting that we're going to apply would be to say if the figure is reflecting a minus, and we just put a negative figure here, then we want the value to show up as a red color. If it is 0 or greater, then we want it to show up as a blue color. Let's select this blue, and we're going to click OK. And here we see that the conditional formatting was applied, which looks really good. Let's test this out to see if it works, and yes, it does. So we see that for negative figures, we are seeing that those figures are showing up in a red. And we are going to, instead of going through the same process to do the same for profit margin, we are going to click on the format visual, and then we are going to apply that format to our profit margin as well. So we see that this helps our user to be able to easily call out what is positive or what is negative about the story that's being told in this dashboard. Let's go to our details page and apply the same conditional formatting. So we see that it is applied on the two pages for consistency. We can also apply conditional formatting to our figures that are represented in our matrix chart. And we are going to do that for profit margin and total profit and loss as well. Those two columns, we're going to apply conditional formatting to it, but this time instead of using color, we're going to go to the format, your visual. We're going to go down to cell element. We're going to select the total profit and loss series, which is this field here, and we are going to apply an icon. So by default, Power BI tries to determine what kind of icon we want to place in each of the cells, but didn't do a very good job because we see that there are some icons showing up as red, but it's actually not a negative value. So we're going to fix that by defining what the rules will be. So the rule that's going to be applied is to the values, and it is for the field total profit and loss, which is represented as a number, not a percentage. So we're going to change all of these arguments to number. And our first argument is if the value is greater than or equal to, and we're going to remove this 0, which will set the minimum value as a default. So if it's equal to the minimum or greater than the minimum, but less than 0, meaning if it's a negative number, then we want to show the down icon, the red down arrow icon. And our next argument would be if it's equal to 0, then it's no change or no difference. So we're just going to apply a dash. And our final argument would be if it's greater than 0, but less than or equal to, and we're going to remove that figure and it will default to the max number, then we want to show the up arrow, which is in a green. So we're going to click OK and see if it applies. So we see that this figure was applied very well because the negative figures are being reflected here for all of the deeper insights. So let's just go a little further and we see that where there are positive values, we are seeing the green up arrow showing, and where there are negative values, we are seeing the down red arrow showing. So this is just one example of how you can use conditional formatting, not just for determining a color for your values, but also applying icons to them. Another way to do this is by using, let's go back and apply conditional formatting to our profit margin. We're going to go back again. After we've selected this visual, we are going to go down to cell element. And this time we're going to apply a data bar. Oh, but before we do that, we actually need to make sure that profit margin is selected, and then we select data bar. So here in the data bar, we're going to say if it's a positive number, we want it to be this color, and if it's a negative, we want it to be this color. And for our axis, we don't want it to be so harsh, so we'd probably just put it as a gray. And here we're going to click on it, and you are seeing that we have just applied conditional formatting, but in this format, which is data bars. So we're seeing for all the negative values, it's showing it's going in the opposite direction in a red color, and of course for the positive values, it's going to the right. And this really helps. It really helps with just an extra attention to detail and going through that extra effort to help your user to navigate your reports and to have a better appreciation for what is being represented in the data. So this was another pro tip. Okay, so our report looks a little more polished. A final tip would be for us to help our user with navigation. We may want that when we publish this report, we may not want our user to have to click on the details button and then click back on the summary button at the bottom here. So what we are going to do is we are going to insert a button in the form of a navigator, which is a page navigator button. And this page navigator button allows our user to navigate the report without having to click at the bottom here and select which page they want to see. In fact, we can just go ahead and hide our details page. And we can determine if the user gets to see the hidden pages or not. In this case, we do want the user to be able to see the details page, but just not at the bottom bars. We want to apply a button that allows a user to have a more improved user experience. And here, of course, this button by default does not look very attractive. In fact, it steals a lot of attention from the report, especially with this dark color. So we're going to go in and do a bit of formatting. So we're going to choose a different shape for this page navigator, and we're going to select the pill shape, and then we're going to apply some style formatting. First thing we want to do is change the font color, remove it from that very harsh color that is the black color, and this is what it looks like in default. But if it is we wanted to go to how it should look like when it's selected, then we just have to change the state to selected, and we can go to the fill color and we can select what color we would like this report to show up in. Let's try a more softer blue, and that looks a little better. We can also remove the border so it doesn't look too defined. Of course, there's a lot more that we can do with this button, but I think it looks pretty good just with this simple formatting. We can also increase the font size. So I'm just going to go through, and also we can look at the hover state and see what that appears to be. So maybe on the hover state we want to increase the font, so we can see the font is increased, and when we want to bold it, that's much better. So this makes for a much better user experience, so that our user can just click this button once we publish our report, and they should be able to navigate seamlessly. Now, this report isn't published yet, but if we want to test out how this navigation button is going to work, we can just hold down the CTRL key and click the details. And when you click the details button, it takes us straight to the details page. But of course, how do our user get back to the summary page? In order for that to happen, we can copy this page navigator onto our details page as well, so that now you see details is highlighted because we're in the details page. If we click CTRL and select the summary button, it takes us to the summary page, and this completes the user experience that we are trying to achieve with this report. So now we have a finished report that allows our user to see the most important figures at the top, supporting visuals below in a summary, and then if the user wants to go into further details of the page, they get to have a more enhanced experience where they get to navigate through using the slices that we have included. The one that we would have custom made would have been the cost range, where we created a conditional column if we wanted to allow the user to navigate what are the products that were in high cost, and we get to select high cost, and we see that our entire report is filtered. So the user has many slicer options in the details page, can also adjust the period that they want to look at in this page, and as we can see, our visuals will adjust accordingly. Okay, so this brings us to the end of this tutorial. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more tips and techniques to help you get the insights you need from your data. Don't forget to download the practice files from the link below to continue your learning journey. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next